At my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell, no, no, to the no, no. Hell to the no, no, to the no, 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 no. Hell to the no, no, to the no, 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 no.
There's absolutely no way that this is acceptable from any government. Essentially, what Trump just said was that he bombed and attacked Venezuela, and then he turned around and kidnapped the president and his wife. At what point in today's history is something like this okay? Why in the hell can't we as adults figure out better ways to handle situations? There's absolutely no reason as to why anyone should be kidnapping anyone from their country for any reason. But in this particular video, I am going to show you a more longer explained explanation in which our media is trying to force feed us into thinking what is actually going on. And then I'm going to show you later on someone who specializes in history, generally world history, what the history of our relationship in Venezuela is, and then you guys will be able to actually see what's really going on here. This is absolutely unacceptable, and no one, and I mean no one, should be allowed to do this. And only because Venezuela cannot actually protect themselves is the reason as to why we as Americans and a country think that we can do this to other people. So stay tuned, and I look forward to educating you today. And if you enjoy my content, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe.
It has been a dramatic and a busy morning already, as we learned just a matter of hours ago that the U.S., according to President Trump, launched a large-scale strike on Venezuela, attacking the capital city of Caracas and several nearby areas. President Trump posting on Truth Social at about 4:30 this morning, announcing those strikes and also revealing that the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife had been captured by the U.S. forces and flown out of the country.
President Trump also saying that he will hold a news conference in just a few hours where we assume he will share more details about the strikes and what should happen next.
It all punctuates what has been a dramatic series of months. The president with warnings and threats all directed at Maduro and his regime. We have full coverage this morning. We begin with NBC's Julie Sirkin. She is traveling with the president. He is at Mar-a-Lago. She is nearby. Julie, good morning.
Peter and Laura, good morning to you. A dramatic moment now as the U.S. conducted and carried out this operation in the middle of the night. I want to pull up the president's Truth Social post one more time, if we can read it really quickly. He said the President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. Mr. Trump said the operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow, he said, calling it a large-scale strike, saying that the United States of America had successfully carried it out. And now, Peter, as you've been talking all morning, more questions perhaps than answers, some of which we presume will be answered by the president at 11 a.m. during his news conference. But this just follows months of escalation in the region. We saw the first strike against alleged drug boats happen back in September. Since then, more than 30 strikes have been carried out by the U.S. military on boats around the Venezuelan coast there that they say have been trafficking illicit drugs consisting of cocaine And in some cases, the administration had argued fentanyl, and that, of course, has been the driver of the U.S. aggression of their policy in this region. This happened and started a couple of months ago, Peter, but has only escalated since. This week, we have seen additional strikes on these boats. We have seen in recent weeks the U.S. seize what they say are oil tankers carrying sanctioned illicit oil over the last couple of weeks off that Venezuelan coast. And we also saw for the first time in the last week a strike on land, on a port that was announced by the president, of course, before this operation to remove Nicolas Maduro, the regime leader there, and his wife. The question now is, where have they been taken to? What happens next? These are questions as well, Peter, that lawmakers are asking even in these early mornings. We know that Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who even in his time as senator has long been against the Venezuelan regime that they say have been conducting narco-terrorism and trafficking in the region. Rubio, even a couple of weeks ago, saying that Maduro is not to be trusted. There are no deals that can be made there. The question now for lawmakers, Democrats and Republicans, is, was this an act of war? We know that Article 1 authority lies within Congress to conduct and to announce and to decide whether the U.S. will be going into war. We know that Rubio has been working the phones all morning, Peter, trying to assure and assuage lawmakers, at least Republicans we know that he spoke to, including some in the Gang of Eight, this coveted group of 8 lawmakers that represent the intelligence committees, the leadership of Congress, and trying to assure them that this is a response that they needed to take here in this action in Venezuela, Peter.
Julie, we have heard from the President of the United States, the New York Times reporting that they spoke to him briefly by phone this morning as well, where he said, among other things, that this was, in his words, a brilliant operation. Actually, he said a lot of good planning and a lot of great troops and great people. We're also hearing from the Republican Senator Mike Lee of Utah, who says he has spoken with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Walk us through a bit more of what we have heard from him. It's significant for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is he says that Rubio told him that the strikes today were part of an effort to protect U.S. personnel from an actual or imminent attack, and that the strikes were deployed to protect and defend those executing the arrest warrant on the ground.
Yeah, essentially a justification for why they had to go in and use military force. Mike Lee, I've covered him for years. He is a constitutional lawyer by trade. This is a matter of great concern for him and Republicans like him, that the administration might have acted in an unlawful way. Mike Lee, originally the senator from Utah, posting on X saying that he wants to know the reason, he wants to know the justification from the administration. He followed up on that post once he spoke to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as you said, saying that the administration was justified in using kinetic force to conduct this operation because, as you said, Mike Lee said that Rubio told him that this was something they had to do to protect the forces on the ground. That's the justification that they used. Similarly, did we just hear from Senator Tom Cotton, who is the top Republican on the Intelligence Committee, who said that that was similar reasoning that the administration had used. But it is so notable that just a couple of weeks ago, Peter, Congress had its first fulsome briefing from Secretary of State Rubio, from Pete Hegseth as well, the Secretary of Defense, a couple of weeks ago, where they took lawmakers in a closed-door setting, where they answered their questions about these operations. What they did not tell them in that moment, Peter, according to Republicans and Democrats that I spoke to, was what was the goal of this operation? Was their ultimate goal to take Maduro out for regime change? Senator Lindsey Graham, for example, telling me that was explicitly the question that he asked, and one that he did not get answered. Democrats, meanwhile, Peter, have been saying all morning, posting on X, that they walked away from that meeting with the knowledge that the administration would not take this step. And yet here you are. We have this, the Trump administration conducting this major operation, according to the president, overnight, answers of which we still don't have many questions. The president told the New York Times as well this morning, Peter, that he will answer some of those questions, including the justification that they used and what happens next in just a couple of hours from now at a press conference.
Yep, the president late last year saying that Maduro's days were numbered. Among the questions right now, was this a negotiated exit? Questions we hope to answer at 11 o'clock in that news conference. Julie Sirkin there in Florida for us. Julie, thank you.
At what point as a country are we going to come to the realization that we can't continue bullying other people into submission? At what point are we going to realize that the more you do this, the more lives that are going to be lost, the more people are not going to trust you, the quicker your country and your regime will collapse? At what point? So later on in this video, which will be the next clip, I will be showing you someone who specializes in teaching history, world history, to high schoolers, and she has volunteered her time on social media platforms to educate everyone about the history of the relationships between America and Venezuela and why we are at honestly, a cataclysmic turning point in our relationship with them, as well as where we stand as a powerful nation today. So if I was a selfish person, I would say, you know what? Trump, do exactly what you need to do to make sure that we stay in power and to make sure that no one jeopardizes where we stand as a powerful nation. But I'm not a selfish person. We can't continue stealing from other people and bullying other people into doing what we want them to do. But then we think that we have the right to operate in the capacity that we want to operate in. And if we offend anyone else, it doesn't matter. They just have to fall in line. This cannot keep happening. And if we are going to have a peaceful planet, we need to learn how to operate in a more sensible manner. We can't keep going around blowing up people's nations just because we want to retain a position on the main stage for all time and eternity. America would be in a much better place if we weren't such fucking bullies. We have bullied our way into this position, and we are over time bullying our way into making sure we stay in this high ranking position that we're in. And honestly, the gig is up. People aren't going to keep tolerating this. They're not going to keep tolerating it. And this, folks, is one of the main reasons as to why we spend so much money on our military. Because truth be told, it's a bullying tactic. It's the only way that you can stay in power and you can get what you want with it at any moment. This is the reason why the nations that have just as good of a military as us, we don't fuck with them. But everyone else who has a semi-okay, lacking in most departments military, they don't have nukes or things like that to threaten anyone back. This is the reason as to why countries like Venezuela get bullied by countries like us, because they can't protect themselves. It has to stop. It's not fair. What belongs to them, and what belongs to us. And if we want a part in anything that another country has, we should partner reasonably. Is that too much to ask for? Is it really too much to ask for? No, it isn't. So with that being said, let's get into this next clip so that we all can be educated on what is really going on here.
Want to learn about Venezuela? I'm getting the board. Whoever said teaching wasn't physical? All right, people want to know about what's going on between the United States and Venezuela, but in order to understand what's going on today, you need to understand what has gone on before. That's why history is so important, guys. Come on. Venezuela and the U.S. I've decided to do this chronologically because I feel like doing history metaphorically difficult. Number one, pre-1998. Pre-1998, Venezuela had a huge oil supply, actually, biggest in the world, and the biggest stakeholder was a U.S. company called Exxon. Why is this important? Because of their huge oil supply in Venezuela, Exxon took it over. So the vast amount of profit, the percentage of profit, went to the U.S. And Venezuela as a country got next to nothing. And because of this, their economy started to fail. And as their economy started to fail, guess what? A dictator waiting in the wings wanted to jump in and save themselves from God knows who. Oh, from the United States. How do I get stake in oil companies is taking over the entire world? Number two, 1998. That's not right. I hate it when I can't write numbers properly. Hugo Chavez was a democratically elected president of Venezuela. Now, once he got in, again I say democratically, he started to push towards authoritarianism, and he started reducing the checks and balances of the democratic system. Side point, does that remind you of anybody else? he also started to rewrite the Constitution to solidify his dictatorial power. Parallels are really uncanny. In 2002, a woman named Maria Machado, ignore how I said that, but keep that name locked in your head because she's going to be important later, created an organization called SUMAT in order to overthrow the Chavez government. Psst, who do you think was funding her operation? You guessed it. George W. Bush, President of the United States at the time, was funding her through the National Endowment of Democracy. You know what? People just make up names to mean anything nowadays. So through this National Endowment for Democracy, the United States funded Machado in order to overthrow Chavez. And when it didn't work, Bush said, "Not my problem, I didn't know anything about it." And she was eliminated from all political life going forward. And then, in 2002, Bush was a very busy guy. Number 4, in 2007, Chavez, reinvigorated with power and an authoritarian regime, decides to nationalize Venezuelan oil. Ruh-roh. That meant that Venezuela took all of Exxon's money, all their oil, and all their access to oil, and shifted the lion's share of profits back to Venezuela and left Exxon, well, not a lot of money. P.S. Exxon then sued and won $1.4 billion in a claim. But what kind of international police force are we going to get for Venezuela to be forced to pay Exxon? None. After that huge shift of economic power, Venezuelan oil dropped from 3 million barrels a day way down to 700,000 barrels a day due to corruption and, let's be honest, informal sanctions put on them by the United States because they just stole a bunch of their money from corporations. Stole might be a U.S. word, considering the oil was on Venezuelan land and considered a Venezuelan resource, but who's counting? The U.S. really does imperialism out of 10, don't they? Ooh, new chalk. Number 5, a guy named Madero, used to be the VP of Chavez, takes over and he starts building an even stronger authoritarian government. I forgot the year. 2013. Obama calls the drug cartel and this particular regime a threat to democracy and national security of the United States. That's then followed by Trump putting on economic sanctions in 2017. Are you with me so far? This is about to get interesting. Interesting, I mean even more corrupt. 6, 2025. I brought you right up to the present. Maria Machado, remember I told you to remember that name, wins the Nobel Peace Prize. And who does she dedicate it to? None other than Donald Trump. And it's at this point that Donald Trump begins attacking boats, Venezuelan boats, calling them drug cartels, talking about revitalizing and restoring democracy to Venezuela, and talking about how they're a threat to national security. And guess what? The U.S. got to go in and save some people. Oh, and P.S. Donald Trump wants his oil back. It's the ending that's really going to get you. The big question about why Donald Trump is doing this is why, and I think the answer is going to surprise you a little bit. Number 1, he is going to claim that he is going to liberate Venezuela. Guys, always be careful when the United States of America liberates anything, because usually it means they're going to take it. And he's going to install Maria as the president, formally excommunicated from all political life, but she's going to serve a purpose. Number 2, Machado will then give oil rights back to, you guessed it, Exxon. 80% goes to them, 20% back to Venezuela. Everybody's happy and a new power is installed, but that's not the only reason this is happening. This last one's going to blow you away. Number 3. Is it about oil? Absolutely. They want control of the world's biggest oil supply, but that's not the full answer. What the real answer is U.S. currency rates. Follow along, this gets tricky. Oil has always been traded in US dollars, called petrol. And what that has served the United States in doing is solidifying, is stabilizing, is increasing US dollars. Because if anybody wants to buy oil anywhere in the world, they have to use US currency. It artificially inflates the price of the US dollar and stabilizes the US economy. This is the real problem. Because what Trump and the United States is really afraid of are BRICS nations. What are they? They are nations, they are countries that have gotten together and are starting to trade without the United States, especially oil, and not use the US currency as their trading denomination. And that is going to possibly submarine the US economy. So is it about oil? Sure, but what really it's about is about the United States being able to control the entire market of trade when it comes to oil, thus inflating and propping up the US economy. So when somebody says, is it about the oil? Say, sure, but that's just a vehicle for them to control everything else.
There you have it, folks. It's always about oil. And now the plot has thickened. Because it's not just about oil this time, it's about reserving and preserving the stability of our currency. It's always something. But then they try to cover it up to make it seem like we're doing someone a favor. We're doing the other country a favor. We're doing their citizens a favor. When it's always a selfish reason. And if the partnership was fair to begin with, we would never even be having this conversation right now. But because America doesn't know how to do anything fairly, things always turn around and end up disastrous just like this. Who do we think we are kidnapping a president and his wife? And secretly, unbeknownst to the citizens of the country that's doing the attacking, we think that, oh, it has something to do with drug trafficking. It has something to do with weapons trafficking, when in fact, it has nothing to do with any of that. It has everything to do with rare minerals, earthly minerals, something that America outsources greatly to other countries. Canada, in particular, we get a lot of our oil from Canada. So it's like, at what point are we going to stop doing this? We have to learn how to be fair in the things that we're doing with other people, we're expecting of other countries. And because certain countries don't have the ability to protect themselves, we think we can just charge in there and do whatever the hell we want to do. That has to stop. But I am very interested in knowing and hearing what you guys think about this situation and how this makes you feel. Were you aware of the tumultuous relationship that America had with Venezuela? Is this the first time you are finding out about the real underlying truth as to why we are invading Venezuela? Do you care about this war? Do you think it's about drugs? What do you think? Please get the conversation started in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy my content, and please stay educated.
I'll be back.